Welcome back. Pull up a chair or I guess a couch cushion. If you are new here, this is our writing group for newbie writers where we are figuring out how we are going to be writing books together in 2026. If you are returning and you are not new here, then thank you so much for your patience as I have been gone. A little MIA, which is not my style. Today, as requested, we are going to be talking about schedules. That is what was requested back at the top of January for how do we make time to write our books? How do we actually make time? How do we actually stick to writing it? And how do we set timelines and goals? Like, what are our expectations? As newbie writers, we don't have a lot to fall back on for experience wise. And so we're kind of guessing, pulling things out of the dark. Then I also will share with you why I was gone, what has happened in my life. I actually feel so thought about because there were some listeners who reached out to me to be like, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. And so I'm really thankful for your space and time, but I'm a very transparent person. So I will tell you what has been going on. And then three, I have some updates on my own book. Y'all, if you've been around for a while, you know that I had a young adult dystopian fantasy where I wrote my first draft and edited it last year. And then I started getting so many different ideas. I have like 5 other book ideas and I started kind of working through some of them. But I have an update for where I want to go and what I want to focus on this year. So let's get after it. All right. So, first, why have I been gone? I have really fallen into figuring out what my purpose is in the world. What is like my large purpose? Like, what am I here to do in terms of my career? I knew, and I think writing was a big part of my purpose, like wanting to do this and having this idea drop in. And part of why I want to write is because what I want to do is I want to make people who grew up like me. I grew up in poverty in an unstable home. My father was abusive. There was a lot of addiction to alcohol and drugs in my home. Um, and I wanted kids who grew up like me to see that there is possibility, but I wanted to do it in a fun way. So that's what my young adult dystopian fantasy was. And so as I started writing that all through the process last year, a couple of things happened. One, I feel like and I hate the word healed, but I worked through so much of my own inner stuff about my childhood that I'm a different person because of it. Like, because of writing my book, I'm a different person. And so I realized towards the end of the year that there's more to my goal than writing these books, and that my mission is so much bigger than sharing just that story through my young adult dystopian fantasy. I realized that I'm ready to just share my story in general. So I started sharing a lot more on Instagram. I started sharing a lot more on my Substack. People are loving my Substack. It's very open, it's very transparent. And it's a place where I want people to feel seen and heard who grew up with nothing or way less and are trying to create way more in their life, because that's what I've been doing this whole time. And so that has felt really important to me. But I had this big idea that I realized my long term, like 10-year goal is that I want to build a place for children where they can feel safe and have belonging, because I believe that's one of the biggest things that helped me get out of my childhood is having positive childhood experiences that were able to offset all my adverse childhood experiences. And so I figured that out in December. And as January rolled in, I was on fire for that. And I told myself, you know what? I'm just going to lean into this fire, and I'm going to allow writing to, because I'm in between books and in between ideas and I need to percolate on everything anyways, I'm going to allow writing to kind of go on the back burner. So we went on a trip to Peru for my husband's birthday. We left on January 10th, and I actually recorded a video while we were there on January 10th and talked about schedules and all of that. And I worked on editing it and things like that, but I just didn't like the video and the time it was taking me to edit, the time that it would have taken me to re-record it at that time. I was like, I just want to focus on the library. So I got a lot of my ideas out about the library, started figuring out what my next steps are and have a trajectory and a plan for that. And that feels really, really good now. And then I found out, so that was like January 10th, we were improved from the 10th to the 30th or 31st, and we came home. So as February kicked off, I was focusing on that, started writing on my Substack again. Well, I never stopped writing on my Substack, but focusing more heavily on that. Um, and talking about and getting used to talking about these stories and sharing these stories about my life and why our childhood is so important. And then February 13th, I got a call that my younger brother passed away on February 12th. Obviously, I'm emotional about that, and I still will be for a really long time. He was very, very important to me. Um, and what was very complicated was he was very, very important to me for a lot of reasons that I won't get into here unless you guys want to. Like I said, I'm an open book. I will make a whole video on this if you guys want to. But our childhood and him specifically is one of my biggest and has been one of my biggest motivators to do everything I've ever done. My brother is somebody who, or was somebody who is such a good person, and the systems, the experiences that he had as a child, everybody has choice, of course, but influenced and forced him to not be able to display that and not be able to follow that. And I feel so strongly about adverse childhood experiences and not having those positive ones where I was able to have those positive ones. Growing up, I had different, I was able to join dance team. I had friends who like really took me in. My first grade teacher was such a safe space, but because my brother was like a troublemaker, he didn't have those positive relationships with teachers because he was always getting in trouble. My dad didn't allow him to go to friends' house or have friends come over. My dad didn't allow him to play sports. So he didn't have any of these. And my parents got divorced when I was in the first grade. And so my little brother stayed with my dad, and my sister and I lived with my mom. And my brother didn't have those positive experiences. So when I wanted to build this library, which I decided in December, it was like in his honor. It was for helping kids like him not have a life that he ended up having. And he and I haven't seen each other in real life in like 10 years. He's been in and out of the prison systems and things like that. And so there's just so many parts of the system that is fucked up and broken, and that I've always felt this way. And so he is the reason why, when I was an elementary school teacher, that I was a champion for kids who grew up with less, and when you grow up with less like that, when you have those adverse effects, it changes who you are on a physiological level. Like there's tons of studies about it. And this is my soapbox. This is like what I've always cared about. But anyways, all the things that I've cared about came to, he had an end that was statistically his end because of how our childhood was. And I had a different childhood because my parents got divorced and I didn't have to stay with my dad. But because of that, I have a completely different life than he experienced. But every day, almost every day, I would think about him. And so this has been really sad. It's been really hard. And so, of course, writing has taken the back seat. Even a lot of my regular work has taken a back seat. I've felt very thankful and very gracious for the clients that I have and the people that I work with, that they've allowed me space to grieve. And we just had his memorial a week ago today, which was a little bit late. He was living in Alaska, so transporting and all the stuff like that and organizing and getting my family together. But it's been really hard. And in the depths of it being really hard, it's also been so eye-opening to what I have and what I've created in my life, where I should be based on the statistics of what I grew up in my childhood and what I have now and even what I'm doing. And it just, in a way, the fuel and the fire that I already felt, I feel like double, triple, a million times now to do something. I do feel helpless in helping my brother, but I do feel like I've been able to help so many kids when I was teaching. And I do think that the library and what I want to do with that is an opportunity for me to help even more people. And I do think writing my books is an opportunity for me to help so many more people. And so that has been what's been going on, and that's why I've been gone. And so thank you for allowing me to share that. If people want to hear more, I'm a total open book. No pun intended, but I am. But that does also lead us into a talk about schedule. I think if you think about even just the things that I shared, there's two main reasons why I've taken time away from writing and taking time away from vlogging this. The first one is where my passion was at, where my desire was at. The first reason why I took time away was because my priority was somewhere different. In 2025, it was a huge priority of mine to make sure that I wrote every week, and I almost wrote every single week, to write multiple times a week. Oh, look at this little cutie. And I accomplished that. Sorry. And as I got to the end and had that new goal and that new fire, I made the active decision to say, okay, writing in the icebox, like on the back burner right now. I've got to get my ideas out for this. I don't want to stifle this because I know this is going to be my legacy that I leave along with these books. These books are definitely part of my legacy. And how awesome is it that these books will be in my library for kids to read? Like, so good. And so I made that active choice. And I think so often we struggle with making that choice. We struggle with making that choice because we don't want to give up on something that I've been working already a whole year on, right? I don't want to give up on you, the people who are here. And what I have to realize and tell myself is the truth is I'm not giving up on this. I'm not saying I'm never writing again or I'm never going to YouTube again. I'm saying for right now, for this season, it's not the most important thing to me. If time pops up, I'm doing it. If time is not there, I need to focus on the library. I think we don't give ourselves permission to do that. And I think that's one of the huge things that blocks us with our schedule is understanding and giving ourselves permission to choose and make a priority, and then giving ourselves permission to change that priority, even when the project is not done. I've always felt like, oh, people probably think I'm flaky or whatever. But what I've realized is because I give myself permission to focus in this way on different project-based tasks, I get more done than most people do. Like that's one thing that so many people tell me about all the time. They're like, Kayla, you get more done in like a week and a month than I have in my entire year. And it's because I allow myself permission to try and go after the thing I'm energized at. And when you can capitalize on that energy, you just are so much more efficient and you go so much further. So I think that's one of the biggest things is allowing ourselves permission to prioritize and to be flexible with that. And the same thing when life lifes. When life lifes, and like I think it's easy to say, obviously, I had a huge loss and massive grief. So, of course, I'm allowed to take time off my book. But it doesn't have to be just that to allow for that. If you're feeling sick and your brain is foggy, you get permission to flex and not write that day. Because what good is it going to be? You'd have so much better if you could like rest and then come back when your brain is clear. You're not going to have a good writing session when your brain can't even think straight, right? But so often we don't allow ourselves the permission to be flexible. And that I think is the biggest thing about having a schedule is saying that it's okay to flex and be flexible with what you're doing, and then it might change. And I think that comes from fear. It comes from fear, oh, if I'm flexible, then I will not finish. Then I will say no every day. But we all know that we are here, we're excited, we have a purpose to write these books. And so we are not the kind of people who are like, oh, if I allow myself time off, I'm just gonna forget about my book forever. No, even through all this grief for me, even through this big goal, it's been still percolating in the back of my mind. I've been writing down and taking notes every once in a while, like, ooh, what does this inspire me about my book? What movie did I see? What character did I watch? How does that inspire me about what I want to write? It's still there until I got to the point where I'm like, I have to make a vlog. I have to get back into my community. It comes back, even in our times of deepest grief, and it'll come back even quicker if you were just sick. It will come back even quicker if you're just uninspired for a week, right? There are so many ways that life lifes, and we have to just allow for it. Right? So I think that's the first thing, flexibility and permission to know and trust yourself that you will come back to it, and trust yourself to follow that energetic intention that where it's going. The second thing, and this is one thing that I thought was really, really helpful when life wasn't lifing or whatever last year, and it's also a mindset thing. This was actually advice that was given to me. I was watching a panel and there was an author. It was a panel of like women who've done amazing things, and one was a woman of color who became an author. And one of the things that she said is that we have to have the mindset that it is our number one priority, right? And this helped me so much last year because I realized, because I was allowing writing to be like third or fourth on my list, when I would go to make my schedule, I would make my schedule and be like, okay, I have to do this client work this day, I have to do this day, and these tasks this day, and I have to do this day. And then I'll be like, okay, where does writing go? Dang, only 30 minutes here. Oh, I only have like 2 hours on a Saturday to write. because I put it in last. If writing is our number one priority, then we look at it first. We say, when am I writing this week? Right? And then we put everything else in around that. And so that changed everything for me last year, is just having the mindset of how important is writing to me right now. As I move into 2026, and right now, I'm going to honestly say writing is not the number one most important thing to me, or at least writing this novel isn't the number one most important thing to me right now in this season. I'm still grieving. That is my number one most important thing. I'm still getting my body, like this grief has hit me not only emotionally in my brain, but physically in my body. I haven't been able to move as much. Y'all know that I'm like working out, running so often, and that has not been the case in the last, it's been about 6 weeks. I'm happy to get 2 days of like real movement in. And so that is my number one priority, getting through that, getting my body back and feeling like what I feel today. Like in order to feel this good to make this video, yesterday I had to allow myself to cry and I slept 9.5 hours. And so I'm still going through the grief. That is my number one priority in this season. And I am giving myself permission for that to be however long. Like this, it could take me 4 months to get through this. It could take me 6. And I know now forever, because of how important he is and the work that I do is so related to his importance, that I will feel this way a lot for my future, forever. And so right now, the priority for me in writing is more like third. So it's my grief and getting over that. And then writing my Substack is a place where I feel really, really inspired. And then writing my book is really important to me. So it's not number one anymore for me right now. And that means when I go to schedule it, it's like the third thing that I put on my schedule to make sure I'm doing those other things first. But I am really excited because I do know that I have so many thoughts and ideas, and I'm back to that brainstorming session, and we'll talk about my book later in happy hour, but I'm so excited about it. The third thing that I kind of want to cover about schedules. Oh, but also I want you to comment right now. Are you claiming writing as your number one priority right now, or is it going to be somewhere else? I want to know, where are we with that prioritization? Also, if you don't want me to share your comments, I love sharing your comments, reading your comments, and talking about them in the videos. Let me know. Like literally comment below and be like, I prefer my name not to be said, or maybe I won't share anybody's names anymore. I personally like that. If someone said my name on a YouTube, I'd be like, they read my comment. They care. I'm part of this community. But I realized people were commenting a lot. And then once I started sharing people's comments, people stopped commenting so much. So I want everybody to feel safe and good. So please also comment below and let me know, like, does that make you feel not good? Can I share yours with the group or not? But what is our priority? And where is writing in that? The next thing is, I think so often our third part is like making a goal for our writing, choosing a timeline for our writing. What's hard about that as newbie authors and newbie writers in general is we have had so few projects under our belt that we have no idea what to create a timeline off of. I used to say this all the time with newbie runners. Like when you are very first running, you don't know what you're capable of. And so many runners will go to run a race and have a time goal. And I'm like, you're just literally pulling that out of your butt from like what you see everybody else doing. And that in no way is your goal, your flow, your strategy. That is an everybody else thing. And so I think one of the things that behooves us specifically, I think if we were more experienced writers, if we'd had 5 books under our belt, we would be able to set more specific goals. But I think as newbie writers, it's our job to like let go of a timeline. And I know that sucks. I know it sucks to like, we want to say, oh, by December, I'm going to have a book done. But I can look back and say, okay, last year for writing the first draft of my young adult dystopian fantasy, I think I did it in like 4 or 5 months. That is one experience. So I could continue to say, oh, 4 or 5 months and I can have a first draft done. But here's the thing. That book changed so much as I was writing it that I don't even think it was a good first draft. And then when I went through editing it and writing a second draft, the same thing happened. I could see how the first half of the book was completely different to the second half of the book. And that created so much editing work. And like, as I go back to it, I'm going to start over from square one because there's some good ideas there, but they're just not cohesive. And so in the future, I'm like, maybe 5 months is going to be too fast for me. So I'm still at a place where I feel like we have to allow ourselves to not have a timeline, which feels so loosey-goosey and feels so not solid and is really hard because everyone asks you when you tell them you're writing a book, what are the 2 questions they ask you? Do you have a publisher? And when can I read it? And it's like, I literally don't know the answer. And it feels so hard and disappointing to tell people that, but it's just the truth. And we need to be proud of that. Be proud to be like, I'm a newbie writer. Oh my God, cats. Can you hear them? I'm a newbie writer, and that's just how it goes. I don't know yet. I don't have enough experience, but I'm really excited for the process. Here's where I'm at. And I think that outside pressure is what makes it hard. Like if you knew that your book was going to come to light as soon as it needed to be and be written perfectly, would you be worried if it was going to be in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months? No. If I knew that people are going to be reading my books, I would not be worried if it was 6 extra months for that, right? If I knew that it would be super great. And so I think that that's the other thing, is allowing that timeline to be gone for us. And then the more that we write, the more books that we write, the more we can start to say, okay, all 5 of my books took me about 6 months to draft. That means as I go to write book 6, I can probably expect the draft to be done in about 6 months. And then you can create timelines around that. But I just don't think we have enough experience to do that yet. The next thing is the cats. I'm so sorry. But the next thing I think about our schedules and writing is just general consistency. And I think you guys know about this about me, is that I have been a coach for years. That was my business after I left education. And I started out as a health coach, and then I helped people grow their businesses. And now I just do curriculum coaching and learning consulting. But one of the biggest things is I've watched people be consistent and inconsistent for years, and kind of diagnosed that there's 4 things when we think about our schedule that we need to focus on. The first one we've already talked about, like, oh, well, no, we haven't really talked about it. I've been feeling it, right? Is our why of why we're writing our books. When we think and when we look at our schedules and we say, I'm not showing up, I don't have enough time, this leans into creating that number 1 priority mindset. Your why of whatever you're doing has to be so strong. It has to be strong that you feel a pull to doing it. If you're writing a book because you have to get your timeline done, that doesn't feel very exciting. If you're writing a book because you think your words can change the world, that feels different. If you're writing a book because you think someone's going to feel seen or heard, that feels different. If you're writing a book because you think you can make someone laugh on a hard day, that is different. If you're writing a book because you know your purpose in life is to be a writer and that's your identity, that is different, right? So our first job when we want to be consistent is to hold on to our why it doesn't matter to us, and stay tapped into that. If we ever feel like things are falling behind, if we ever feel like we're not showing up, we need to come back and say, why am I doing this? This changed the game in all the coaching that I'm doing. Why are you running your business? Why are you even here? When you tap into that, you want to show up, you want to do the things, you prioritize it. Why are you trying to lose weight? Why does it matter? Not to see a number on the scale. Not to see a number on the scale, but because you'll feel more energetic. You'll feel proud when you go on that date. You'll feel great when you're in a swimsuit, right? Your why matters more. When you're thinking about a swimsuit, you're more likely to take the actions that will get you there than you're thinking about a number on the scale. So it's the same for us. Are you writing for a page goal? Are you trying to write 5,000 words today? That's not going to be as motivating as thinking about the person who's going to read your book and their life is going to be changed by it. So the first thing is your why. The second thing is, are you doing too much too fast? That kind of goes to our timelines. As newbies, I bet so many of us are doing that. And I was exploring this a lot last year. Like, do I want to write a little bit every day? Do I want to write in big chunks 2 days a week? Do I want a whole week once a month to write? Like, we have to really explore and decide what we're doing. But my guess is we're all like, I'm going to start writing 1,000 words a day, and I'm going to do 5,000 words a week. And then that's going to give me 20,000 words a month. And that is too much too fast, and we get burnout, we get overwhelmed, we feel like we need a break, we feel bad that we need a break, and then we feel guilty, and then we feel like we've ruined everything, and it just sets us up for a spiral. We need to think realistically. Like, I use the system that I call a nudge system, where it's like, okay, you want to start writing 5,000 words a week. Cool. Where do we want to start right now? Like, look practically. What have you written before? Sit down and have a writing session and get some data, get some information to decide what actually makes sense in a writing session. Maybe you're realizing you only write 350 words in a session, so make that your goal. After you do that for 2 weeks, increase it to 550. After you do that for a couple weeks, increase it to 750. After you do that, then maybe you could be 1,000 and go up and up and up, so it's not so overwhelming in the beginning. So the other thing from that too is I think we also don't look at these two parts. Do we actually like what we're doing and does it actually fit in our schedule? And I think with writing, we so often, and I did this again to learn, like I tried and I only kept what mattered to me. There are so many people's different writing routines. It's like they make a cup of tea, they light a certain candle. It always has to be in the morning, it always has to be by this window or whatever it is. And it's like, we oftentimes, I think, replicate and mimic what we see, which is great for learning. It's actually an important way to learn. And we have to remember that we need to be doing that to see what works for us. We don't want to be doing that to be forced into a hole, a pigeonhole of like what we have to be doing, but instead saying, okay, the thing that worked for me out of all of that is morning. I don't need a cup of tea. I don't need a candlelit, and morning does work. Also, location matters, not the location that that person uses, but I like getting out of the house to write. It makes me feel more open. Having to move, walk before I write makes me feel good. So we have to start building our own patterns instead of doing what we see that we think we should be doing. And I think that's where we so totally go wrong. Then does it even fit in your schedule? Then it's actually putting in what actually works and what fits into your schedule. So those to me are the things that matter most. So after watching all of that, we need to determine those things. What are the things that get you in the mood to write the best? You, not Brandon Sanderson, not whoever else that you adore that is a writer. I'm reading Brandon Sanderson right now, so of course that came up. But what are the things that get you in the writing in the mood the most? Don't try to follow what anybody else is doing. How much are you currently writing in one session? How much are you currently writing in 1 week? Make your goals based on where you are. So I'm curious, after hearing that, write in the comments, what goal do you want to make for the month of April for writing based on what you heard? Are you at a place where you can say, I know I could write 20,000 words? Or are you at a place where you're like, okay, I can write 5,000 words in the month of April. I can maybe do like 1,200 a week because I can do two 600 word writing sessions in a week. Like however you want to make your goals, you could do that. For me, for the month of April, if I think about that, I would love to say that I'm going to start writing, but I'm back to square one where I'm brainstorming. And so my goal will be that I spend at least one day a week focused solely on my book and getting my ideas out. In order to do that, I'm going to stay focused on my why, about why I'm writing. And then I am going to, so I'm going to stay focused on my why, about why I'm writing. For me, that is the system that's making people feel seen and heard and understood and having people see that there's opportunity. And then I'm going to make sure that I get out of the house to do those things. I might start in the morning in my home because my mind starts going usually while I'm still in my pajamas, just rolling, like I roll out of bed and like into thoughts. And so that might start, but then I'm going to make sure that I get out of the house. Those are the things that I'm going to plan. And that week, that day of the week, I'm changing my schedule so that it is Friday. And I feel thankful that I can not have any client calls on a Friday and choose to do that. That feels really, really good to me, but that is what I am going to do. So I want to know, what are you going to do for the month of April? And I'm going to say this, I also will say I am actually doing a consistency and accountability challenge on my Substack for free for my free subscribers. So if you do want to be part of that in April, I'm going to be posting like every other day on there in the chat. The chat feature is open for everybody, where we are going to set a goal, go through our mindset pieces, kind of like what we just talked about, well, like all of those things really that I know about consistency. We're basically going to be doing all those, figuring out the things that are blocking us in our mindset. Where is this at our priority? Picking the actions that actually work for each of us. And then I'm going to be going over different consistency strategies to keep doing them, and accountability strategies, like how can we get our stakeholders, our family, our friends, or somebody to help hold us accountable and cheer us on. So if you want to join that, I'll put the link in the bio. You are more than welcome. If you're watching this in April, join anyways, even if it's halfway through. And like I said, it's free. It's free. There are like paid upgrades if you want to get on live calls with me or like have one-on-one coaching and all of that, but just join for free. It would actually be so fun to have so many of my newbie writer friends here join me on Substack to just kind of go through all of that together. And I'm realizing as we talk about this is that I feel like our schedule should be so much more tangible, but really the truth is it is tangible, but it's tangible each individually for each one of us. And it's based on our mindset of prioritizing. It's based on where we are at in life. It's based on being flexible and giving ourselves permission. And we have to realize that it is individual. So the steps that we take really aren't, we should all be doing 1,000 words. It's really, we should all be giving ourselves permission to write in the way that we need to at the level in which we are. And as newbie writers, I think we just see this huge gap. Other people, they know their system. They know all of these things about themselves already, but we don't. If we'd been writing for 5 years and we've written 5 books, we would know how many words a day we could write. We would know exactly how to get started, but we are still discovering. And I think that is the permission that we have to have for ourselves. So I'm excited for you to tell me your goals below. And with all of that, I do want to tell you an update on my book and the insight that I've had, but we'll do that in happy hour. We are going for a run, so for happy hour, I know I really imagined that we'd be having wine at this, but since I'm going for a run right after this, I'm going to have electrolytes. Literally not sponsored or anything. I just feel like it's the most exciting, flavorful thing that I would be willing to drink before I go running. Also, aren't these flowers gorgeous? They were gifted to me for my heart and soul to feel better, and they totally, absolutely work. If you know anybody who's going through grief, I gotta say, the one thing that I have really thought about is like in the very beginning, everybody's there giving you, kind words, and you soak it up and it feels good, but you're also kind of numb. And people, like, that's when people gave me DoorDash, and like, cause I was really just like on the couch. And so even my husband supporting is like, having meals and stuff was actually really, really beneficial. Other things that I thought about that were really hard was cleaning my house. So the next time that somebody goes through grief, like a loss like this, what I want to do is I want to buy them a house cleaner for like 1 week after I know that everything happened, because that will like kind of maybe sustain them. And then the other thing that I think has been so sweet is it's been a handful of weeks. It's been like 6 weeks since I found out, and somebody sent me these flowers. And so I'm still really going through it, and to have somebody recognize that grief lasts a really long time. It's not just when you find out. I feel really seen, and I feel really held, and I feel really cared about by that. And I feel really thankful. And that's something I don't think I've ever really thought about before for other people. So if you know anybody else going through anything, check on them 8 weeks after, 6 weeks after, and help them clean their house. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple different things. I want to talk about the updates on the insight that I've had for my book. Like I've kind of already said, I'm back at the place where my book has been on ice. I've been percolating it in the background, and my purpose has become such a big thing. And I've realized that in my book, and I'm so curious what you guys think about this. I realized that in my book, I got lost in the sauce. I literally lost the plot, like literally, not even a pun, lost the plot because I started to get like overly caught up in all of the other features that like a fantasy novel could have, and what would make it be a bestseller, and all of these things. And it made me lose my voice of what I wanted to create. And so I think that's why I've been looking at it. And after I read it, I'm like, this is not what I wanted to create. Like, why did I make this scene happen? Like, this is so like almost cringy to me. Not because like if I would have read something like that in Harry Potter, I would have loved it. If I read something like that in Throne of Glass, I would have loved it. But I'm like, but because of the way that I wrote it, and the reason that I wrote it was because of that, not because it was the story I wanted to tell. And I realized that the thing that will make a bestseller is me being truthful and honest, and really writing the book in the way that I want, so that it is displayed in the way that I want, so that people read it and feel what I want them to feel. And even losing my brother, like I said, because of how important he has been for all of the work that I've ever done in my life, I see how important he is in this story. So I think that it's just renewed me in my purpose. And again, as newbie writers, like, do you feel this? I feel like it's so easy to get lost in the sauce. We are like establishing our voice, establishing our message, establishing why we want to write. And it's so easy to be like, oh, but they're doing that, I'm going to try that on. And then you just kind of like keep going down that path too far, this path too far. And you like go back and away from who you were to begin with and why you're here to begin with. And so I'm glad that I took that time away. And even now, as we're talking about schedules and stuff, like so thankful I took that time away, because otherwise I think it would have stayed lost in the sauce without pausing to reflect. But I think, and there's other, I remember very specifically when I did that week writing in Oregon and I made a vlog about it. The cover is me crying. I talk about my brother in that, and how my goal had always been to like make a side along book that's his, from his perspective. But I actually think that what I need to do in order to make my book be what it is I think I was like inventing like friends and like things like this, where, you want to have the main character and then you want to have these tertiary characters that are important or whatever. But, and I was like trying to choose friends in my life that I could make those people. But I actually think those tertiary characters, like if there were a golden trio, it should be me, my sister, and my brother. And this book needs to follow us. And I think one of the things that could be so powerful is to see how our lives changed and differed, how we made different choices, how we went through different experiences. And I think that would be really powerful. So I'm starting to play around with that. And I'm trying to decide like who ends up having magical powers, who doesn't, how does that display? But what I realized that I really want to show really powerfully, and I think the thing that I struggled with in the first one, is I want to show how the system keeps poor people poor, how the system is not helpful to people who need it most. And largely because in order to get any access for anything that keeps us healthy and happy in like a most basic Maslow's hierarchy way is like cost money. And so very much so, like poor people can't be healthy, right? Poor people don't have access to things that are just like health insurance. I mean, of course, some places like state health insurance and things like that. But if you've ever been through that, that's not always great. And so I really want to talk about the system and how the system is not for all people. And so that is something that I want to come back to. And I really lost that sauce before. And so as I'm brainstorming, like that, because that's my purpose. Like that's my purpose in the world, is I want to talk about for people who've had less and how they can build more. And so the system is a thing that gets in the way. The systems of our brain, poverty mindset, the systems how other people think about people in poverty. Like, I'm gonna be honest, there's even a guy in my apartment building that is going kind of crazy. He's like threatening people and stuff like that. And he's had, I don't know where story is going, but I'm sharing it with you. And he's had like other arrests on his record. And he's here living off of like a housing voucher, which is cool. Like, I think that's such a cool program. And yet I can't help but think about like, yes, he's an adult and he is doing this. He's been arrested before. And I can't help but think, yes, giving him a housing voucher is helpful, but it's not helpful for all of our physical safety around him. But like tracing back, I bet I could trace all the way back through his life to where this started and where helping him would actually change. Because obviously he's been arrested before. Nothing happened to help him after those arrests. There was no trying to fix guidance counseling or whatever, or where he was from. And I think about this very specifically with my brother. Like when he was arrested as in like juvenile, when he was under 18, that is a time where I'm like, there should be so many resources to be like, this kid is impacted. We have to do everything we can to help him. We need to see what is his home going to be like when he gets out of jail, or out of like juvie. What is his home going to be like? We need to go like help his dad know how best to handle him. We need to go talk to the people at school. We need to talk to his teachers. Like those are the types of investments that stop somebody from doing so much other shit later in the world. And I don't know how, but like that message needs to come out of my book. And so that's kind of like what I'm thinking about and what I'm wanting to be. And so I know that sounds really, really deep. And I don't want you to think like I just had this thought that if your book is not like that it's not important, because it is. I've read books that just make me laugh and they are so important. I've read books that just show me magic, and that's so important. I've watched movies like Crazy Rich Asians and thought, wow, there's so much other life that I could have and so much money that I could make. And that's important too, right? So I'm curious, what is your purpose and what is it that you want people to take away from your book? Whether it's laughing, whether it's feeling good, whether it's saying the system is fucked and needs to be fixed. What is it that you want? And then let's just have a good old reminder, like, where are you at in the process of your book? It has been so long since we checked in. Please, in the comments, just give me an update of where everybody is. You have mine, now I want yours. And then I'm thinking that next video, we're going to be talking about brainstorming because that's where I'm at. But let me know if there's anything else that you think we should also talk about. It feels so good to be back with you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for still welcoming me on the couch and in the chair and in the newbie writing group and being here for 2026. It's going to be a great year of writing.